Hello, I'm Nell Robinson, Program Innovation Manager at Childhaven. I've been with Childhaven for about 23 years in a variety of positions, and this is my favorite job title. Through Childhaven, I currently partner with the Frontiers of Innovation, UC Berkeley, and the Harvard Center on the Developing Child, designing play interventions that target executive function skills in young children and their parents. Anybody remember Tina Turner singing this song? What's EF got to do with it? Okay, she sang What's Love Got to Do with It? And I've been unsure what the IT stood for. For my purposes, I've replaced love with executive function, and it is going to mean parenting. Let's first define executive function, and later we'll talk about what it has to do with parenting skills. The term executive functions refers to a set of cognitive skills that support meaningful, goal-directed behavior, such as the ability to focus on relevant information, follow rules, and regulate emotional responses. This little boy is trying to not eat the marshmallow. It's the marshmallow test. If he can wait just a little longer, he's going to get another marshmallow. That presumes that you like marshmallows. The next is working memory. We will all require this skill later as we try to remember where we parked. And then, of course, mental flexibility is generally how we cope with life. We're not born with these skills. We are born with the potential to develop them. Children depend on the adults around them to provide positive, sensitive support to develop these skills. All caregivers can influence the development of these cognitive skills, and adults, I'm including all of us here, protect or buffer children from toxic stress, neglect, violence, poverty, adversity, because those disrupt the potential to build these skills. How we parent is critical to developing this skill set in the prefrontal cortex of our brain. Most importantly, the adult or the parent must be able to reach for inhibitory control, working memory, and mental flexibility to be that good parent. All right, so I'm not a scientist, and I use a picture of the brain cautiously. Fortunately, the purple and the purple match up. That's the prefrontal cortex. I've borrowed many of these slides from Dr. Sylvia Bungay at UC Berkeley. She is a cognitive neuroscientist and the principal researcher at the Building Blocks of Cognition Lab at UC Berkeley, and she's a great ally and collaborator for Childhaven, someone we work with frequently. She reframes adult executive function skills into planning, monitoring, and self-control. So, what happens if you're a parent and these skills are not fully developed? All right, you didn't get the benefit of a responsive caregiver, or you didn't have the opportunities for this to happen. Or, in a different context, you may have had a very good childhood, but this capacity has been assaulted by chronic stress, exposure to violence, trauma, drugs, illness. How can you be an adequate parent? We all have those moments when these cognitive skills are temporarily out of reach. Those, wow, did I just say that to my child moments. But I'm speaking about when these skills aren't functionally there, okay? So we're going to dig a little deeper. This is called the Dysexecutive Questionnaire, and it's a self-reported executive functioning measure. I've administered this with parents, and I've taken it myself. Okay, it goes on a 5-point scale from never. Is your answer? Your answer is never. The answer is occasionally, sometimes, fairly often, very often. So how would you answer question 1? I have trouble making decisions or deciding what I want to do. Sometimes context helps. Sometimes you can make those decisions, but if there's sort of so many choices, making a decision might be a little bit harder. or if you're tired, or if you're stressed. All right, or I have difficulty thinking ahead and planning for the future. It's a pretty critical skill. Think if you often answer that as no, I frequently have difficulty with this. I find it difficult to keep my mind on something and am easily distracted. My answer changes with that one, depending on stress or fatigue. I think we all are challenged at some times to really keep your mind on what it is. I lose my temper at the slightest thing. I act without thinking, doing the first thing that comes to mind. Can you see in these beginning questions that if your answer is fairly often or very often, you're going to run into trouble very quickly? Okay. How about that last couple of ones? If you're unconcerned about how others feel about your behavior, how are you going to monitor your behavior if that isn't part of how you think? I am unconcerned how other people think of me. It's going to be a little bit tricky when you go back to that previous slide about planning, monitoring, and self-control. Or how about this last one? I have difficulty realizing the extent of my problems. Okay. Let's go back to planning and look at these three skill sets. These are complicated cognitive tasks. All right? So remember the video that we just saw? That was a moment called a parent-child interactive therapy, right? And in that video, the coach, the therapist, is in fact feeding lines to the parent because the parent can't reach for it in that moment. The parent wasn't connecting with her son, right? So that's coaching, repetition, until the parent masters those skills. And then the coach backs off. So the parent may be setting her own goals, but it be the coach or the therapist really helping out with the obstacles. What's ahead of you that you might want to move this way instead of going that way? All right? The support around that parent is crucial. The brain can learn or relearn skills, but it gets much, much harder. Okay, let's see the first one here. Ooh, there you go, plasticity, going way down really fast. And then we have effort, the blue line. Whoa, it's going up. I think the sweet spot's 30, is that right? It's all over. Okay, so I left the animation in on this slide because I just loved how it drops so precipitously, and then I asked myself, does it have to be that steep? Okay. Back to monitoring. If you walk into a Childhaven branch, you will interact with lots and lots of people. We're generally friendly. We're always busy. A parent comes into this space exhausted or wary. It may feel chaotic. And here's an example of monitoring. I'm getting really upset. I'm going to need to calm down before I say or do something I'm going to regret later. That capacity for moment-to-moment awareness. As a parent, if I can't do that, I'm exposing myself to lots of misunderstanding. All right, the last is self-control. This is sometimes called self-regulation or self-regulatory skills, but self-control is just a little bit different from that. It's also, again, called inhibitory control. This is the ability to collect one's thoughts, manage feelings, and control behavior. Now, thoughts just come to us, but they can either linger, or that thought can grow, or we can let that thought just pass right through. all right? But we have control. No, but feelings are much harder. But our brains can filter these. So we do have the capacity to filter our feelings and put them places, all right? So behavior follows thoughts and feelings. But if we are monitoring ourselves, we will likely choose the right behavior. Okay, so a little bit more about behavior, because that's what often gets us in trouble, lots of trouble. Okay, imagine an individual as a seesaw, right? Or fulcrum, sitting on a fulcrum. Chronic stress, fear, poverty, addiction, those negative environmental influences tip that seesaw out of balance, but support, resources, positive, trusting relationships, Childhaven, can help to counteract those forces. All right, so looking at this slide a little bit, let's think of a parent and a child in one of many challenging situations, tantrums being a familiar one. But if your brain, if the parent's brain is always on the right now, right, it's going to lead to a reactive and impulsive behavior. The tantrum goes on, and the parent is focused on one thought. Just stop it. Stop that right now. It doesn't stop, but the other piece that's important to say, it's all about the self. Why are you doing this to me? Why is your tantrum affecting me, right? So over on this side of the fulcrum, or on that side, we've got, right now, the one, the self, right here, all right? We want to find a way to counteract this. We want to encourage and teach and coach, practice, just like the video, other ways that shift the focus to planning, resisting impulse, doing it a better way. Okay, so back to my awkward title. What's executive function got to do with this? What's it got to do with parenting? I think all of us are sitting there going, yeah, it's the part of the brain that we need to be reaching for, to keep it all in balance, to keep it so that fulcrum sort of stays a little bit in the middle there, that we don't react, that we think. So I'm going to put it right up there, just below love. Thank you.